This video is called Why Socrates is the Greatest Business Coach in History. Now, Socrates is not typically associated with business, and I don't know anything about Socrates' business life. The only thing I know is that the Socratic method is the only thing that can take you out of the lowest part of your journey to the dark night of the soul part of your business. When you're in that phase of your business, the only thing you can do is stop thinking. The Socratic method is the most certain way for us to stop being certain. It's kind of paradoxical. And move forward with our full spiritual, psychophysical energy and will toward decision making that's relevant and rational for the next step of whatever pursuit we're on. But we're talking about business, we're talking about content creation, we're talking about online business. So when you're in the darkest phase of the process, this is a phase where you can't focus on how you feel anymore, where your emotions may be lying to you, and then the things you are compelled to say may not be the things you should say. They may slow down, stop, or even reverse any progress you've made, like socially speaking. Now, I'm somebody who's been very ambivalent about my online reputation. I never really gave a shit about social media for a long time. I felt there was a kind of myopic thing about trying to influence people or be some kind of guru or any of that crap. And lately, as I've been trying to make content, I've been trying to come up with good stories, I keep running into blocks. And I think it's because my style is not a style of certainty. That's what everyone is trying to push for. And when I go back and I think of the various YouTubers or personalities that I listen to, you know, I'm 35 years old. So I was used to YouTube when there was really only two kinds of YouTubers. People that were like very serious about video editing, vlogs, and like Casey Neistat or whatever. Gamer people, I don't know. And then you had really niche vlogs, or people reposting some kind of old lectures, and that's all I gave a shit about was old lectures, you know, esoteric wisdom, Gnostic Christianity, listening to the Bible, listening to Kabbalah, all sorts of crap. But as far as spirituality goes, I'm pretty much restrictive to listening to the New Testament. But regardless of what your spiritual path is, I think there are times where you might feel abandoned by God, or you might feel disconnected from the entire process of growth and creativity. And so I think we can only rely on Socrates in those moments. And if you aren't sure what I mean, Socrates is famous for saying he knows nothing. And it's in that space where you can actually open your mind. So if you have negative thoughts, if you have a lot of confusion, well, why don't you take complete ownership of that confusion and say, well, I'm not sure where I'm at. I'm not sure what my motivations are. I'm not sure what I'm good at. I'm not sure what business I'm building here. I'm not sure what I should be moving toward, what I should be trying to be good at. Even though you probably do know what you could sell, you probably do know what your skills are, but let's say you're in that lost mental space. Well, that's just the negative side of the positive Socratic energy. And that Socratic energy is, I know nothing. And that's actually a very fertile meditative switch that you can immediately make. And now I'm positing that what if that space is where you can ask some of the most profound questions with a sense of, I almost wanted to say borrowed optimism, but it's like optimism you can take for granted. You don't have to pay back. You're not taking on any kind of debt for this type of optimism by being Socratic and saying, well, I don't know what the outcome will be. I don't know. I have no idea. I am simply going to ask what if right now. What if by saying I don't know anything, I can actually free my own mind from whatever I think is negative? That I don't actually know enough about my situation and the potential around me to come to a conclusion that it's too late for me to build a business, or it's too hard, or anything that like is easy for when your mind is trying to give up on something. Well, you can override that and say, well, I don't know if I should give up. I don't actually know if it's too hard for me. That's just an emotion. This Socratic nuclear bomb movement of energy in your mind can totally destroy every limiting belief. But it's not dramatic. And so perhaps one of the things you might be waiting for is some kind of certainty of the positive emotion, which I don't know how to give that to somebody. There are drugs that can do that. You can certainly exercise and do a bunch of yoga or weightlifting or something like that, breathing exercises. But what about like a deep residual vibration of positivity? Or more importantly, where could positivity grow from? Right? What if we could create some mental situation where positivity didn't have to compete with negativity? That would be as good in the long run, or even in the short run, as jumping straight to positivity. I mean, isn't that functionally useful, and maybe even more preferable to simply bring yourself to a neutral state? So there's kind of a Tao to Socratic thinking that Socrates is able to clear his mind. So if you're looking for the simplest framework for clearing negative energy, clearing negative thoughts, start with that Socratic frame.